justice, as well as erode solidarity across generations. Although ageism is primarily associated with older generations, young people also experience age discrimination. This experience, often overlooked, is damaging to the growth and development of a young person's identity, considering that we learn who we are during this stage of life. As young Bermudians, we are taught to respect our elders, and this principle is held sacred within our culture, ingrained into the minds of all Bermudians. Our culture deems elders as instantaneously worthy of respect, while young people are required to earn it. This power imbalance is evident within the political arena, the greater community, and educational institutions. Young people are disregarded, tossed to the side, and labeled with mountains of negative connotations. Language commonly used to describe young Bermudians include immature, entitled, and lazy. These claims are baseless and inaccurate.
Moreover, these degrading labels affect their self-image and negatively impact their confidence, leading to academic challenges and employment insecurity. When a young person displays antisocial behavior, older generations must consider their role in sustaining conditions that cultivate this behavior. As a community, what can we do to eradicate this issue and provide an opportunity for our young people to reach their fullest potential? There needs to be a cultural shift in how we interact with our young people, and we need to cultivate a healthy and prosperous relationship with them. Currently, the government's efforts to engage young people are minimal, and consequently, the relationship between the government and the youth is performative and lackluster.
On to Section 3, the emergence of youth organizations. In response to the performative relationship fostered by the government, local youth organizations emerge to insert themselves into decision-making processes that they are often excluded from. In addition to this institutional gap, Bermudian civic and social science curriculums do very little to give young people language and knowledge to conceive everyday issues as connected to politics. Currently, the educational system does not encourage civic participation. Instead, segments of young people, usually students who develop political interest through academic experiences abroad in university, return home and create passion projects to bridge the significant gaps. The implication of this cycle is vicious and repetitive. Students who have a pre-existing knowledge and interest in politics are primarily responsible for facilitating youth engagement. Therefore, they maintain their knowledge and interest in political affairs. Comparatively, students who lack exposure to discourse and procedures remain unaware of political practices, maintaining their disengagement in political affairs.
Bermuda Youth Connect is a political youth organization founded by 4 Bermudian women, Ajay Peets, Haley Tiart, Teray Tall, and Veronica Swan de Graaf, all former youth parliamentarians with a demonstrated record of community activity and political involvement. The 4 founders personally have no issue with voting, interpreting political platforms, or engaging in civic discourse. But they also understood that the government did not provide support to young people who were unfamiliar with civic practices. Therefore, BYC was created soon after the incumbents announced the October 2020 snap election. BYC intended to provide information about constituency markups, voting procedures, and a space for each political party to communicate directly with the youth in a digital format.
Bermuda Youth Connect was the first group to request a nationwide debate and a catalyst for the circulating online petition demanding a debate from potential leaders. Organizations like Burmemes and Community Voices for Democracy joined BYC to request a debate. Unfortunately, the incumbent party dismissed the calls for a debate, and BYC was forced to trade off fundamental democratic processes. To appease the incumbents, Bermuda Youth Connect held the Pre-Election Leaders Forum. This compromise illustrates 2 problems of the political landscape in Bermuda. The first is that youth groups provide political resources that governments have a responsibility to facilitate, like resources for voting and forums for voters to discuss and voice concerns.
Youth organizations like BYC emerge to bridge the gap left by policymakers themselves and experience resistance from political representatives while doing so. The second deduction from this experience is that the government needs to accept that they are accountable to the citizens of Bermuda. The national call for a debate is only one example of how citizens go unheard and often excluded from political decision-making. Although youth organizations have emerged in response to the institutional gap, policymakers must create an inclusive and receptive system. On to Section 4 about addressing further inequalities. Women face unique barriers to entry in Parliament. Therefore, removing these barriers and empowering women to occupy political spaces is essential to creating an equitable Bermuda. Despite representing 52% of the population, women only hold 8 out of 36 seats in the House of Assembly, a mere 22%. In practice, the lack of women in Parliament makes it impossible to represent all Bermudians. Instead, the disparity is a result of the systemic oppression of women, which feeds into Bermuda's misogynistic culture and leads to tokenism.
The leader of the incumbent political party absolved himself for contributing to the systematic oppression of women because of 2 female representatives involved in their party. The number of female parliamentarians that young women can associate themselves with are limited, such as Dame Jennifer Smith, Dame Lois Brown Evans, and Dame Pamela Gordon. Women in Bermuda experience rampant inequality. Disparities across income, employment, positions of leadership, and gendered violence are further amplified when race is accounted for. For example, the median income for Black women most recently was $61,000 compared to $82,000 for white women.
Although there is little public data that analyzes the relationship between more than 2 variables like gender, race, and age in Bermuda, trends worldwide show the inequalities are exacerbated among the youth. More notably, the evidence of the impact of women's empowerment and political participation is overwhelming. In countries with a high percentage of women involved in public life, there are lower levels of inequality and greater confidence in the government.
The lack of women in positions of power and government depicts the inequality in Bermuda and leadership's inability to acknowledge patriarchy as a pressing problem. In fact, it is a never-ending cycle that perpetuates inequality. Misogynistic norms have allowed politicians to openly showcase attitudes of toxic male superiority and contribute to cultures of sexual violence. In the past, politicians have withdrawn from elections after admission of sexual harassment, only to be appointed as public officials by the government soon after. To change our culture and the inequality that it perpetuates, the active involvement and recruitment of women leaders must be prioritized.
Now on to Section 5, Summary and Towards a Better Bermuda. Throughout this paper, we have outlined 4 obstacles that prevent youth empowerment in Bermuda. As outlined in Section 1, youth empowerment needs to be a national priority.
That was just incredibly powerful. These young women, I mean, my goodness, right?
They spoke from the heart, very frank and unfettered. These are our future leaders.
Yes.
If we don't take a moment and listen and step up to the plate and assist where they're asking for assistance,
Yeah.
what kind of future are we going to have?
Exactly.
Hopefully these young women continue and they push forward with their platform and their campaigns.
Absolutely. And I mean, the level of research and just knowing the stats and everything, that's just, it's amazing to me.
Yeah, they were very in-depth.
Yes, absolutely. And now we're going to go ahead and take another commercial break.
Yeah, we eatin' lobster steak, now we ain't vegan, we ain't stopping, ain't no reason, it's my time, yeah, it's my season. No, we don't come to play, nah, no, we don't come to play, no, nah, hey, no, we don't come to play, way we walk and way we talk, they know we don't come to play.
We've powered your homes and businesses for over a century. We've learned so much over that time about our environmental impact and new sustainable methods of providing electricity. So now we're making changes. Belco is committed to sustainability. We're making the transition to large-scale renewable power and upgrading our network to accommodate it. In the meantime, we've replaced inefficient, outdated engines with modern, efficient engines in our last fossil fuel-powered plant. Our vehicle fleet is on track to be 100% electric in the near future, reducing our carbon emissions and saving operational costs. We also believe that sustainability extends to the community. We proudly fund education, community development, and family support initiatives, while also providing scholarships, internships, and apprenticeships to develop the leaders of tomorrow. Learn more about our commitment to sustainability at belco.bm.
Did you know that wearing a motorcycle helmet reduces the risk of death in an accident by 42%? It also reduces the chance of a head injury by 69%. Also, did you know that wearing a bicycle helmet reduces the risk of a head injury by as much as 85%?
This message is brought to you by the Bermuda Road Safety Council.
And apologies for the technical glitch, but we are continuing with the program. And now we're moving on to AME YPD. The young people of the AME Church speak to empowerment through their faith and believe that we are our brother's keeper. The YPD has been in existence for more than 40 years, and currently they have some 7 different meeting venues. Yearly, they organize a food drive and package non-perishable items that are given to more than 125 families. Each October, the young people have an opportunity to travel to the United States to attend YPD Leadership Institute. Let's take a look and see what they have to share.
Who are we? We are the Bermuda Conference Young People's and Children's Division of the AME Church. We stand on the shoulders of our founder, Bishop Richard Allen and Sarah Allen, who were former slaves. Therefore, social justice is embedded within us. The YPD empowers us through leadership training, Bible studies, mission outreach, fun activities, and character development. This allows us to develop lifelong friends. In my experience, the YPD has given me a safe place to express my genuine feelings and opinions without judgment. Our vision is to build strong young people, because as Frederick Douglass stated, it is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. Be empowered!
You ask, how can we be empowered? How can we empower others? As young people, we are faced with many challenges, but we must not let our bad days interfere with our good ones. And we must turn every life experience into an opportunity.
Be empowered!
Happiness should not be built on material possessions. Instead, we must build a life on a solid spiritual foundation.
Be empowered in diversity.
It's okay to have a diverse circle of friends, but we must find friendships that encourage and empower us. As we differ, we should not focus on our challenges, rather focus on our unique abilities and what we each have to offer.
Be empowered in purpose.
Each one of us can be nurtured to discover and develop our own true purpose. The first and biggest step towards discovering your true purpose and a successful future is to set goals. This will give you the drive to keep you going. My goal is to become a magistrate. I am shadowing and networking with local professionals in this field, and I believe I will reach this goal.
Empower how? Our position is this. In order to empower youth today and in the future, we must return to 2 basic principles: love and the village.
Love. Love is an action. We see ourselves as agents of change through love, with compassion towards others. We have been taught to love in such a way that we honor and cherish the lives of others. Everyone's life is not the same. Many struggle as a result of generational issues, and some have not had an equal opportunity to experience love. But love is not simply providing material possessions. Love is not survival alone. Love is not quick fix programs and organizations. that focus only on surface issues without focusing on real problems and solutions. For the Bible teaches us that love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no records of wrongs. Love never fails. This is from 1 Corinthians 13, 4-5. The village. You are the village. The village of friends, parents, teachers, church, community clubs, parish councils, organizations, charities, politicians, family members, and neighbors. You all have a role to play in our future. You can invest in the life of a young person by mentoring them, teaching and modeling respect, and by supporting an existing organization. Each one reach one, each one teach one. Organizations can provide opportunities for us to express ourselves in a safe place, free from judgment. From childhood, we are taught that women must be strong and men don't cry. But young men must be allowed to express their emotions in order to grow into emotionally healthy adults. For me, YPD has been my village. There, I have found people who support me no matter what, people who motivate me, and people who believe that I can and will reach my goals.
You ask, how can we be empowered? How can we empower others? We can do so by sharing the love of God. Respectfully submitted by
Your future cardiothoracic surgeon, Josiah Hasselbalberta.
Your future magistrate, Torian Can.
and your future creative influencer, Dominique Brown.
Wow. Wow. Again, these guys are phenomenal. I, as an adult and mother of 4, I'm very inspired and blown away. An underlying theme that I felt I got from that video was unity and diversity.
Yes.
I mean, they're here tonight, I think, and you guys are amazing. And I mean, just talking about the acceptance, tolerance, things that we as adults don't really do and we expect young people to do, and to hear that from young people, again, is, I mean, I'm getting goosebumps. Just sitting here, going through these testimonials tonight, it's phenomenal. I'm privileged to get to be here and participate in this tonight.
Absolutely. And one of the things that we should also point out is the fact that these young people are sharing their opinions. They're sharing what they believe. They're sharing their values. Like, none of this was coerced. None of this was dictated to them. It's no script. Exactly. It's exactly how they feel about these issues. So shout out to them. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And we have many more to come. I mean, the night is still young. We have several young people lined up. So we're going to see more of the mentees and mentor relationships that they speak about, just the inspiration that they're sharing as well.
Absolutely. And let's go ahead and hear from our sponsors again.
We've powered your homes and businesses for over a century. We've learned so much over that time about our environmental impact and new sustainable methods of providing electricity. So now we're making changes. Belco is committed to sustainability. We're making the transition to large-scale renewable power and upgrading our network to accommodate it. In the meantime, we've replaced inefficient, outdated engines with modern, efficient engines in our last fossil fuel-powered plant. Our vehicle fleet is on track to be 100% electric in the near future, reducing our carbon emissions and saving operational costs. We also believe that sustainability extends to the community. We proudly fund education, community development, and family support initiatives, while also providing scholarships, internships, and apprenticeships to develop the leaders of tomorrow. Learn more about our commitment to sustainability at belco.bm.
Did you know that pedestrian crossings are areas designated for foot traffic, which are intended to increase pedestrian safety and facilitate the flow of vehicular traffic? They are absolutely vital in maintaining order in the streets and protecting both drivers and pedestrians on the road. This message is brought to you by the Bermuda Road Safety Council.
We've powered your homes and businesses for over a century. We've learned so much over that time about our environmental impact and new sustainable methods of providing electricity. So now we're making changes. Belco is committed to sustainability. We're making the transition to large-scale renewable power and upgrading our network to accommodate it. In the meantime, we've replaced inefficient, outdated engines with modern, efficient engines in our last fossil fuel-powered plant. Our vehicle fleet is on track to be 100% electric in the near future, reducing our carbon emissions and saving operational costs. We also believe that sustainability extends to the community. We proudly fund education, community development, and family support initiatives, while also providing scholarships, internships, and apprenticeships to develop the leaders of tomorrow. Learn more about our commitment to sustainability at belco.bm.
The delicate balance of advancing economies through the various levers of capitalism and the industries deployed to support the economy is very much the focus of Erin Critchlow of Bermuda is Love. Erin, who has joined the Cox-Hallett-Wilkinson Pupillage Program, says ignore the environment at our peril. Let's hear what Erin has to say.
How the human right to a healthy environment can accelerate Bermuda's action on climate change and promote youth empowerment. There is no bigger existential threat to Bermuda than climate change. It threatens our way of life, our community, and Bermuda itself. Bermuda's action on climate change up to this point has been negligible. We acknowledge that the government, following its participation in the UN Climate Change Conference, has pledged to create a framework to balance development and sustainability. This, along with the proposed single-use plastic ban, is promising. However, the impact of Belco, the airport dump, and wide-scale trash pollution are all problems that have been left unaddressed for decades. There needs to be greater awareness among the youth surrounding the importance of the environment and environmental issues that plague Bermuda. Also, greater action needs to be taken to reduce the effects of climate change and environmental damage in Bermuda. Bermuda's Love argues that the introduction of a new human right, the right to a healthy environment, can tackle all of these issues. Firstly, the right can hold the government, private companies, and individuals more accountable for environmental damage. Secondly, the right can be used as a tool to educate people, especially the youth, on the importance of our place in nature itself. In October 2021, the United Nations formally recognized the human right to a healthy environment. This was a significant achievement, as it was introduced on the eve of the UN Climate Change Conference. It was heralded as a historic victory for environmental protection, an important step forward for the world's most vulnerable people who are often inextricably tied to negative environmental effects. As a result, Bermuda's Love advocates for the human right to a healthy environment to be added to the Bermuda Constitution Order 1968 to protect both the people and the environment and ultimately address climate change. Human rights require the protection of the environment. Environmental protection is on the same level of importance as other human interests that are fundamental to human dignity, equality, and freedom. Bermuda's Love believes that a safe, clean, healthy, and sustainable environment is necessary for the full enjoyment of the human rights to life, health, food, water, housing, and even the pursuit of happiness. Human beings are part of nature, and our human rights are intertwined with the environment in which we live. Environmental harm interferes with the enjoyment of human rights, and the exercise of human rights encourages us to protect the environment and promote sustainable development. Moreover, a clean and healthy environment forms the very basis of human life, as are balanced ecosystems, diversity, and other elements of nature on which people depend. The right to a healthy environment recognizes that nature is a keystone of a dignified human existence, in line with a wealth of scientific evidence linking human welfare and the natural world. The introduction of a human right to a healthy environment could act as a crucial legal pathway for Bermuda to protect the natural world by both encouraging the government to pass stronger environmental laws, as well as allowing the courts to hold violators accountable. When written into constitutions, such rights become hard to ignore, creating an enduring force counteracting the interest against protecting nature, and when applied by the judiciary, it can help to provide a safety net to protect against gaps in statutory laws and creates opportunities for better access to justice. The ability to show harmful environmental laws or practices as human rights issues can help hold governments, companies, and individuals responsible for preventing human rights or environment violations throughout their institutions, supply chains, and communities, respectively. In addition, recognizing the right to a healthy environment can help shape Bermuda's mentality towards nature, which can help garner support for the environment and introduce sustainability into all aspects of Bermudian life, which can include extensive school curricula on sustainability. This is vitally important, as we can potentially achieve more in the long term through education than through going to the courts and litigating for years. Recognizing the right can also shape the way journalists frame environmental issues as something people have a right to, rather than just one policy consideration. This can empower the youth to start social justice movements, mobilize the public, and further deter potential violators. The human right to a healthy environment can help promote the youth into further engagement and human rights decision-making and apply pressure on the government and companies to make better climate decisions. We're living in a global environmental crisis. We're living in a nature crisis. We need, as the scientists are saying, and as the youth are saying, rapid, systemic, and transformative changes in all aspects of society. The youth are the voice of climate activism, from Greta Thunberg to Bermuda's own Christy Sanchez of Generation Action and Saleha Stange of Fridays for Future. We need to empower the youth by giving them the tools to make real, actionable systemic change. For example, in Colombia, young people filed a lawsuit that, based on their constitutional right to a healthy environment, is going to end deforestation in the Colombian portion of the Amazon. Bermuda is Love believes that this is also possible and necessary for Bermuda. We advocate for the amplification of youth involvement in decision-making processes in a permanent capacity and as a regular process, not just optionally or occasionally. This, of course, is their future, their livelihood, and they deserve a say in what their future looks like. The youth are indeed the future of our society, and even though Bermuda is a small country, we can change the whole world. While the rights of children are protected by the Convention on the Rights of the Child, the rights of future generations are not formally recognized in this or other major human rights instruments. A strong argument in favor of the rights of future generations can, however, be made based on the human rights principle of equity and several multilateral environmental agreements. This includes the Declaration of the United Nations Conference on the Human Environment, which states that defending and improving the human environment for present and future generations has become an imperative goal for mankind. Thus, recognizing the human right to a healthy environment can help protect both the children of today and tomorrow. The right to a healthy environment can serve several important benefits, including stronger environmental laws and policies, improved implementation and enforcement of those laws and policies, increased levels of public participation in environmental decision-making, increased access to information and access to justice, a level playing field with social and economic rights, and reduced environmental injustices and better environment performances. A human rights-based approach to climate action which recognizes the human right to a healthy environment can facilitate and support the above benefits, in addition to accountability and transparency. This can help protect the groups and individuals that are most vulnerable to climate change, including women, children, and poor. Since the human right to a healthy environment was first mentioned in the Stockholm Declaration in 1972, a result of the first major environmental conference, some 110 countries have now constitutionally recognized it. While its impact varies across the globe, it has created a powerful safeguard against the rising tide of environmental destruction. Countries with the right to a healthy environment or other environmental mandates in their constitutions tend to have stronger environmental policies in general. They're also more likely to score better on the metrics of sustainable development. More than 80% of member states of the United Nations now recognize the right to a healthy, safe, clean, and sustainable environment through either their constitutions, legislation, or ratification of regional human rights treaties. As mentioned above, the Colombian Supreme Court recently decided that deforestation of the Amazon violated a right to a healthy environment for present and future generations and required the government to put protections in place. Meanwhile, the Nepalese Supreme Court has held that the government must act on climate change as part of its citizens' constitutional right to a healthy environment. Recognizing the human right to a healthy environment provides a powerful basis to protect nature itself. By doing so, we can infer the intrinsic value of nature, meaning that nature should not be valued in terms of how it may benefit humans financially, but rather as having value in of itself. Bermuda's Love believes that nature has an intrinsic value in virtue of having a good of its own, regardless of human interaction. All living organisms and ecosystems have a good of their own. Therefore, nature's needs or interests must always be considered. This is something that everyone should care about. And understanding the intrinsic value of nature helps us to understand that we all have a responsibility to protect nature from human exploitation and abuse.
Thank you so much, Aaron. Your passion is just so inspiring. Sandro Fubler grew up as a young black male in the heart of Pembroke, Middletown to be exact. For many young men, these days their surroundings seem to determine their fate in life. This does not have to be the case, says Sandro. Sandro, now an accomplished physiotherapist and operating his own practice, believes mentorship and good advice from those who know what it takes to move the mindset from I can't to I can. He received a scholarship to attend Saltus, got to see how others lived, and made his way to the top on merit. But, he says, one must stay focused and seek the advice of those who have stayed the course. Now let's tune in to see what Sandro has to share.
Going to Saltus, I get to the end of that journey, get to graduate, and everybody knows where they're going. Oh yeah, I'm going to this place, I'm going to this university. Well, in my mind, I wanted to go, but I couldn't afford to go to any of those places. So I had a conundrum, I had a problem that I had to solve. It was like, how do I fund myself to go to the next level? That challenge was probably my biggest one to date, at that time in my life, and figuring that out. I can say I had a period where I was depressed because I was like, I want to be able to do this and I can't do it, and that's what I was talking about, the limitations. There were limitations in front of me, what I believed. So I found myself in a circumstance where I wanted to go away and study, and the area of practice in healthcare is not something I can do online, right? You can't do it, and back then online wasn't a thing like that. So to be able to do something, or find my way overseas to be able to do that. And again, speaking of opportunities I thought had passed me, I had opportunities because I was well adapted in mathematics and different areas. It's like, oh, that's perfect for Bermuda, right? You can do, insurance, reinsurance, accounting, whatever. It's like, that did not drive me. Like, just the thought of going to those areas did not excite me at all. So to be able to do that was like, for me, it felt like going down that direction is a direction that I did not want to do. And it's probably because of my journey with my family, with my mom, but that's subconscious, right? Because I didn't know why that was. Like, there's that constant self-learning process. I did not know why I was so drawn to healthcare fields. But when I reflect on it, it's probably because of that. It's probably because of, and so yeah, in the end, that I needed someone. I needed mentors around me. That's when I started, humbling point, and reach and find mentors who would say, hey, I believe in you. And one very important mentor was Bishop Vernon Lamb. He was one person who was like, you can do it. you can reach out. You can find ways to get to where you need to go, and it's not easy when you really put things in perspective of the limitations that we put in front of ourselves. So that's in essence, if we don't say the right message to ourselves, we can be self-sabotaging at any given time, right? You can have everything going for you. You could be like a top footballer or whatever it may be, and get to the point where you're right in front of the goal, and all you need is one moment of, am I going to put it in the back of the net or am I not? And you can miss.
Exactly.
You know, so you can get everything, have everything going for you, and still have a moment of self-sabotage. So it's really having the focus and being able to just have that constant belief and reinforcing that it does not stop. You have to continually reinforce, what you really believe in.
Well, what can I say? Sandro, another testament. I mean, it really doesn't matter your background, what your history is.
Yep.
As long as you have the motivation, you're self-motivated, you have the right mentors,
Yep.
anything can happen. The sky is the limit and beyond. And I think his testimonial pretty much covered that.
Absolutely. While most of our presenters have focused on an aspect of youth empowerment, we thought after hearing their submissions and recommendations, we would hear from the Minister of Youth, Sports, and Culture, Dr. Ernest Peets, who has agreed to take the respective messages to Parliament by way of a ministerial statement. The minister faced questions from Year 10 Work Academy student Jack McDonald, who may just find himself before the cameras, like us, in the future. Let's go ahead and take a look at that interview.
Good afternoon, Minister Peets. My name is Jack McDonald, and I'm part of the Hamilton Interact Rotary Club. I just wanted to tell you how much of an honor it is for me to be interviewing you today. So, first question I want to ask you is, what made you go into politics?
Oh, that's a $1 million question. To be quite honest, I had no real thoughts about actually getting involved in politics as I was coming along in my young adult life, as I began my career. Eventually I got married and had kids, and was enjoying life and trying to do the best I can to be a up and coming sort of person in the community as relates to doing the best you can to raise your family and support the community. Sometime in about 2017, I had an opportunity to have a conversation with one of the area MPs, and he had suggested, hey, listen, given some of your community work, given some of your professional experience, I think you might make a really, really good candidate to really help move Bermuda forward. So I had a conversation with my wife. I thought she was going to talk me out of it, to be quite honest. The actual opposite happened. She was very, very supportive of the idea. So I had a conversation with the Progressive Labor Party and went through the sort of candidate process, and lo and behold, at the end of that process, I was invited to run in constituency number 10, and the rest is history.
Wow. Okay, can you think of anyone who has empowered you as a youth?
Well, I obviously, my family, of course, I have really, really good parents, I have a really, really good family, but also there are other individuals, such as teachers, such as some of my coaches. Those individuals had a really, really big impact on, helping me stay, on that sort of straight and narrow path. It wasn't always a straight path, but without those individuals in my life, I have no real idea exactly where I'll be today. But fortunately, as I was coming through high school, I had a really, really a lot of support, and I had the opportunity after high school to go off to boarding school. Once I got to boarding school, things just automatically changed. My attitude changed, some of the things I was looking for myself began to change, and I began to believe in myself just a little bit more, and eventually went off to college, and the rest is history.
Oh, wow. What advice would you give me as a Year 10 student aspiring for leadership?
Oh, absolutely. That's a really, really good question. So you have to be really, really, really clear about who you are and what you bring to the table. Keep in mind that even at your young age, you do have something very, very, very valuable to share. One of the things that is important to us as a government, particularly as it relates to the youth policy, we want to have a policy that's in place that takes into consideration the individuals whom the policy is going to impact the most, and that's you, that's your peers. So your involvement and your contribution to the conversation about what's happening in our economy, what's happening in the environment, what's happening in education, these are necessary conversations for persons like yourself to be involved in.
Thank you. As we navigate uncharted waters during COVID, what challenges do many of the youth groups you work with encounter, and how do you, as the youth minister, assist these groups or their leaders?
Well, right now, one of the biggest issues, at least from my point of view, as relates to what our youth groups are really, really struggling with is resources. COVID has really impacted, the availability of resources. The economy has constricted just a bit. And right now we're kind of in a very, very desperate situation as it relates to having resources available for every particular organization out there. The third sector, of course, is doing the best job it possibly can to raise funds. The government, of course, is doing the best job it can as well. But one of the biggest concerns, of course, as I travel around the country, get an opportunity to get into some of our youth organizations and clubs, one of the biggest problems is money and resources.
All right. As a busy, hardworking minister, how do you manage time and address stress?
I can probably do with a little bit of improvement on that part. To be quite honest, if you know me quite well, the person that helps me the most is my wife. And from the very beginning when we got married, there was a commitment that we made to each other. And part of that commitment, of course, was making sure we keep family first. So this particular job is a lot of responsibility, and a lot of times it doesn't have traditional hours. And that's what comes with the territory. So what really, really helps me, of course, is having that initial commitment with my wife and I and with the family, that despite what's happening as it relates to things regarding work, that we don't sacrifice that quality time that we have at home with each other and with our kids. So I'm quite disciplined with that.
What advice would you give to young teens who are faced with hardship due to COVID?
Well, we haven't really fully understood exactly the extent of some of the issues long-term that COVID will have on our young people, and that's probably going to be something that as a country and perhaps as governments around the world, we're going to have to wrestle with. The psychological impact, the spiritually emotional impact, and of course what it has an impact on our education. A lot of our schools, of course, have closed. That impacts the ability for kids to actually have in-classroom instruction. What's the long-term impact on that? I'm not really sure. My wife, for example, she's a P1 teacher, and one of the things that we were talking about, if you're trying to teach kids how to read, one of the things that are important is actually having the student to be able to see how you enunciate words. But if you're trying to enunciate words behind a mask, it makes it really, really difficult for that sort of reading, learning to sort of take place. So going forward, we're certainly going to have to be very, very aware that there are some short-term and some long-term issues as it relates to how the pandemic has affected youth. We want to make sure in the short term, of course, that there are resources available for anything that may be happening regarding academics or what's going on emotionally. So I'm really, really concerned about that, and perhaps maybe throughout the conversation for this youth summit, it would be nice for the youth to begin to sort of speak to us about how that particular question has impacted them, so that we as a government or we as adults can sort of understand that, so that we can perhaps put some things in place to be of better support.
All right, lastly, as a minister over youth, what are some of the challenges you face?
Oh, some of the biggest challenges that we face as the Minister of Youth, Culture and Sport, a lot of our events and a lot of our responsibility have to do with sports and with youth, and a lot of that is outside. And a lot of that has been impacted by COVID. So COVID, of course, has impacted our ability to put on the type of events that we normally would. The events that we normally sponsor haven't taken place because of COVID. whether they're indoors or outdoors. And that's a huge problem for us, because we understand that as it relates to what this particular ministry does for the country, that part of us that enjoys the outdoors, that part of us that enjoys doing things that are recreational, those things have been largely curtailed over the last 18 months, and that's been a problem. For our sports part, of course, we've got some individuals who are trying to compete internationally, whether individually or as a national sport, and their inability to train, their inability to have competition affects their ability to be prepared for what's coming next. Those are some of the significant challenges that we're facing. But hopefully we're coming out of that, and hopefully 2022 will be much better.
All right, well, thank you so much for being here and answering these questions.
Absolutely, thank you.
So, Mr. McDonald, wow, he got to interview the minister, and I mean, all his questions were relevant. The minister seems to have his finger on the pulse. He knows what's going on.
Absolutely.
He was able to answer adequately, and great stuff from, was it year 10?
Year 10?
Yeah, amazing, wow.
I mean, I certainly know when I was in grade 10, I wasn't interviewing ministers who are in the House of Assembly, so kudos to Mr. McDonald. So we're going to go ahead and take another commercial break, and when we get back from the break, we are going to hear from Youth Parliament, which should be really cool.
We've powered your homes and businesses for over a century. We've learned so much over that time about our environmental impact and new sustainable methods of providing electricity. So now we're making changes. Belco is committed to sustainability. We're making the transition to large-scale renewable power and upgrading our network to accommodate it. In the meantime, we've replaced inefficient, outdated engines with modern, efficient engines in our last fossil fuel-powered plant. Our vehicle fleet is on track to be 100% electric in the near future, reducing our carbon emissions and saving operational costs. We also believe that sustainability extends to the community. We proudly fund education, community development, and family support initiatives, while also providing scholarships, internships, and apprenticeships to develop the leaders of tomorrow. Learn more about our commitment to sustainability at belco.bm.
Did you know that pedestrian crossings are areas designated for foot traffic, which are intended to increase pedestrian safety and facilitate the flow of vehicular traffic? They are absolutely vital in maintaining order in the streets and protecting both drivers and pedestrians on the road. This message is brought to you by the Bermuda Road Safety Council. Did you know that the purpose of signals is to inform other road users of your presence or what you intend to do? Signals are informative in that they may give notice of an intention to carry out a maneuver. They give a warning, not an instruction, and give no right whatsoever to carry out the intended action unless it is safe. This message is brought to you by the Bermuda Road Safety Council.
We get money, yeah, we eatin' lobster steak. Now we ain't vegan, we ain't stopping, ain't no reason. It's my time, yeah, it's my season. No, we don't come to play. Nah, no, we don't come to play. No, nah, hey, no, we don't come to play. Where we walk and where we talk, they know we don't come to play.
And now for our next segment. Coming live from the Trudeau Room here at the Hamilton Princess, we are looking at the Youth Parliament. Many of our young people engage very early in the legislative process through the chambers of Youth Parliament. Those who sit in Youth Parliament often give feedback to our representatives in the lower house and express the views of their peers. Youth Parliament member Ms. Chalet Corday reflects on the operations of the body and matters impacting everyone during the COVID pandemic. She gives us her presentation live. As I mentioned earlier, she is live. She's here with us, present. Let's now go to Michelle, who is at the adjacent microphone.
Good evening, Mr. Speaker, ministers, honorable members, senators, members of the Rotary Club, my fellow presenters, members of the public and media. On behalf of Youth Parliament Bermuda, I would like to thank Mr. Richardson, Mrs. Bassett, the Rotary Club of Hamilton, Bermuda, and all the organizers of this Bermuda International Youth Summit. Throughout our history, there is a tendency in Bermuda to see only the negatives of our young people. But the youth of today want to have opportunities to make meaningful contributions to society, to improve their condition in life, and to participate in the economic system of our island. Youth Parliament Bermuda was established to give the youth just that. A platform where they can voice their concerns, discuss problems, debate solutions, and much more. Over the years, Youth Parliament has had the opportunities to have discussions with government leaders, engage with government departments and bodies on the development of government policies, and present legislation recommendations that were developed in the Youth Parliament. Young people are Bermuda's most important and precious resource. The effects of COVID-19 pandemic are being felt around the world, with potentially far-reaching social, economic, and geopolitical implications. Such challenges can be daunting, but can also create new opportunities. Whatever issue one may hope to tackle, leadership and empowerment are the most essential keys to success. Bermudians are more literate and skilled than ever before. Our young are consistently exposed to new ideas. I believe that tomorrow's world belongs to young people, and it can be everything they want it to become if they are given the opportunities today to have a say in Bermuda's future. With the ever-growing cost of living in Bermuda and the growing effect that it has on young people's ability to be able to live and survive in Bermuda, we should engage the youth in these discussions and ensure that programs are being implemented today that fosters creativity and innovation. Technology and globalization are impacting the lives of people everywhere, driving change at a fast pace. We can communicate, transact, and travel faster than ever before. The internet, or what was originally called the World Wide Web, was introduced in 1990, only 30 years ago. Today, 4.6 billion people use the internet, and it is almost everything that we do every day. Google, which did not exist 25 years ago, processes 70,000 searches per year, or 2 trillion searches per second. Steve Jobs unveiled the first iPhone in 2007, and now smartphones are everywhere. There are now more than 10 billion mobile devices in use globally, far exceeding the world's total population. Innovation and technology have brought remarkable breakthroughs, and we must encourage our youth to continue to explore and discover. The reforming of education should cultivate an awareness of and appreciation for the ideal of sound economic practices and business ventures for our young Bermudians. Young people are ultimately the ones who must bear the formidable responsibility for attaining the necessary symbiosis between tradition and advancement. The significant contribution that education makes not only to personal fulfillment, but to national development is universally recognized. No doubt in the Bermuda context, specifically in the field of international business, government, and development, youth play a critical role. Business leaders readily state that the future growth of Bermuda is directly tied to the successful development of young Bermudians. The young Bermudian professional represents a fundamental ingredient in the total economic advancement of Bermuda. As government has begun discussing on living wage and minimum wage, a solid ethical framework, innovative leadership should tap into the creativity and ingenuity of our youth. so that the power of innovation can be channeled to address even the most difficult social problems. Certainly, with today's remarkable technology and communication tools, the potential for young leaders to make a significant impact is enormous. With the technical tools to spread information and ideas broadly and rapidly, moral and innovative, young people can make meaningful and far-reaching contributions to the betterment of Bermuda. Bermuda's future is its youth. And our elders must not only educate and communicate, but must respect the youth and provide the opportunities for us to contribute to our future now. I am hopeful for Bermuda's youthful generation as this summit proves that we are invested in our future. The participants here today have decided to address critical issues of reforming education, investing in health, bringing the divides of inequality, harnessing the impact of digital and new technologies, and protecting the environment and natural resources. I am sure the discussions throughout the summit will be informative, practical, and actionable. Thank you.
Wow. Can we clap? I know. I know we keep saying wow, but seriously. Wow. Thank you, Michelle. Again, this is like, I didn't think I could get my mind blown over and over and over so much. I mean, very invaluable information. Yeah. Talking about technology, innovate. I mean, all the words, the buzzwords that you keep hearing. It's not just empowerment. They're talking about technology, information, innovation, and then also the word respect came up in that speech there. Yes. And I think that's something you and I probably remember growing up feeling like our elders needed to respect us, just like we knew we had to respect them. Pretty much. So that was a very good message. I feel like I've been hearing that for so long now, but hopefully those who are tuned in, who are the elders, can really take that to heart and work with our young people. Yes, and again, we thank Ms. Chalet, and we are so grateful to have with us here tonight the Speaker of the House, Mr. Dennis Lister. Good evening, Mr. Lister. How are you?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
So we've heard from these young people. What are your thoughts on their opinions, their beliefs, and how they feel that the future of Bermuda looks?
Bermuda's future looks like we've got good, level-headed young people ready to step up when their time comes. And I put in that context in that when Mr. Richardson first approached me, it was an interesting conversation. And it ran on the lines of, what is the intent of the night, sorry? What is the intent of the night? Is it one where we're going to be listening to people complaining, expressing frustrations, or on the other side where we'll be listening to young people talking about how they see where the issues are today and how they can address the issue in conversation about what we should be looking to do collectively. How can they contribute it even at their age? And I think we've hit that mark tonight. Definitely, as you've heard from the comments that have been expressed by the young people in their own words, unscripted as you said, describing how they see the future, how they see the issues that they were speaking to, bringing solutions to the topic, whatever the topic may have been, from the range of interest-free loans, from the climate, from just getting themselves involved in understanding that they have to empower themselves. They have to be empowered. And if we're talking about what Bermuda will look like in the future, it'll look like what the young people today make it tomorrow. Because those like me have little time left, so to speak, on this public life. So we want to make sure that those who come behind us will really come with a mindset of understanding that it's in their hands. They are empowered to make a difference. And it starts now. All of us started at a young age at whatever we committed ourselves to do. And we've developed that. At the same time, they're doing it now.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. We are so excited to have with us Youth Connect live on Zoom. So we're going to go right ahead to them right now. Good evening. How are you guys?
Good evening. Thank you for having us.
Evening.
Thank you so much for joining us. We loved your presentation. How did you guys come up with all of that incredible information? And well synced. You were very synchronized. Everybody had their parts and they were very balanced and they all gelled, very cohesive. So who would like to go first? Yeah.
Well, I guess I'll go first, sorry. Even though we're all different individuals and we all have all different opinions, we're all one cohesive group. We all came together to form this group for the same mission. So we have a common understanding. And we also came up together through youth parliament. So we also have an understanding of the political process. We're all young people, we're all young women. So with all of this commonality, that's probably why we're so cohesive within our message in this paper.
Absolutely. And, oh, go ahead. I see.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. And just to add to Audrey, like a lot of the problems that we heard from other groups as well, like they seem to be communicating the same message, right? So it seems like a lot of the issues that we share are so pressing that they're hard to ignore. So that also might explain why like there's so much like commonality and consensus, because the problems are pretty big. So like everyone is aware of them.
Absolutely. And if we could wave a magic wand and change the future for Bermuda, what does that look like for you?
Well, definitely representation of all groups, all colors, all genders within our leadership. You know, we live in a country where there's 52% women within our population, but that's not reflective within our leadership. And I think we need to empower our young women specifically to make our voices heard and encourage us to kind of get involved in the political process and empower those behind us as well. I remember fondly when I was 7 years old, Dame Jennifer Smith came knocking on my door, canvassing, and just meeting her, I just felt this presence. I was like, I just want to be just like you.
I love it.
She's always been like a role model for me. So I feel like we need to have more women involved, more people of different colors, different sexual orientations to encourage everybody in Bermuda to get involved.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much. We so appreciate you tuning in live, and we wish you the best of luck. Now we're going to go ahead and hear from Jason Gonzalez. He is Rotary Bermuda's link to the world of youth empowerment and activity. Jason hosted a number of youth conferences at the United Nations and ensures that our deliberations here on the International Youth Summit are disseminated over the vast world network of Rotary International. Let's go ahead and hear from Jason.
Hi, my name is Jason Gonzalez, and I am Rotary International's youth representative to the United Nations in New York. Since 2015, I've been appointed by Rotary's president to amplify the voices of Rotaractors and Interactors when it comes to achieving the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, otherwise known as the SDGs. By hosting various conferences at the United Nations and promoting other opportunities for Rotaractors and Interactors to share their own experiences on global stages, I support young people to think globally and act locally. On a more local level, I'm a past president and current foundation chair for the Rotary E-Club of Wall Street, New York, which is a club that I helped revive a few years ago. I also chair the Youth Service Committee for Rotary District 7230, which spans Bermuda and the New York City metro area. Our Youth Service Committee focuses on hosting programs such as Interact and Rotaract that engage, educate, and grow young leaders. Kathy Bassett and Rick Ulrich are two very active members of this committee supporting Interactors, and I'm so thankful they've included me in today's important conversation. Professionally, I work for UNICEF, the United Nations Agency for Children. UNICEF as a whole works in more than 190 countries around the world to ensure every child has a brighter future. I work on the adolescent health team, supporting a partnership that aims to break the stigma around mental health. And I'm very lucky to have found an opportunity like this to make a difference while doing the things that I love, which is exactly how I define empowerment. I define empowerment as opening a doorway or an opportunity for someone to discover what they are passionate about and supporting them along the way to ensure they're motivated and equipped to achieve their goal. And as you can tell, I'm passionate about opportunities that feature, highlight, and equip young people to be the best you can be. I appreciate the invitation of joining today and the work you've put into this incredible event. It's amazing that so many young leaders and community leaders from Bermuda and beyond share the same goal of empowering young people, whether they are your children, your students, or yourself and your peers. I'm especially excited that so many Rotaractors, Interactors, former Youth Exchange students, and other young people from other youth groups like Bermuda Youth Connect have come together to bring this event to life. And the important thing to remember is youth empowerment is all about putting young people front and center, directly involving young people in the process for identifying needs, creating solutions, and tackling challenges hands-on. Through my volunteering with Rotary and through my work, I've witnessed the incredible impact individuals alone can have when equipped with resources and knowledge. Even when there's not an opportunity to be seen, one can be created. So imagine the greater impact had on humanity when we come together. As we think about what empowerment means to ourselves, it's equally important to consider what empowerment means to each other. Once we understand the perspective of the other person, regardless of age, we can truly get to the root to ensure we're making the most meaningful effort, most effective effort towards positive peace. Good ideas come from thoughts that build upon our own experiences, but great ideas come from conversations we have with one another as we share our experiences. So to truly empower young people to become young leaders, or for young people themselves to empower themselves, discussions like this are crucial. And please maximize today's opportunity to share your experiences with one another. And when sharing your past experiences, think about how you can build it together in the future to serve humanity. When describing a service project you've done, welcome the other person to the next time you're going to have that service project. Or when sharing a cause you're passionate about, ask the other person, what are you passionate about? Empowerment can begin with one conversation and one simple question, asking each other what's on your mind and how can we make a difference. I look forward to learning what comes of this exciting event today, organized by Rotarians, Interactors, Rotaractors, and our Rotary friends throughout Bermuda and beyond. Building upon today's conversations, I also hope you'll consider joining us virtually on March 25th and 26th of 2022 for Rotary Day with UNICEF, which is a global program that will bring together voices of young people, UNICEF colleagues, and members of the Rotary community who will share their perspectives on empowerment, specifically empowering girls and breaking barriers. So more information can be found on that event at rotaryundanyc.org. And again, I look forward to hearing what comes of today, and thank you again so much for including me in your program.
Thank you all so much. That was just an incredible night of amazing videos featuring just wow. I know we keep saying wow, and like I feel silly saying wow, but seriously, Bermuda's future's in good hands.
Exactly. And I think when we look at all the different students that participated tonight, there was diversity there.
Absolutely.
And one of the underlying themes, as the young ladies mentioned on the Zoom call, was unity and diversity.
Yes.
And, I mean, that can't be stressed enough. I think that's important for young people because they always feel alienated at times and don't feel like they've been heard. And these young people are on fire.
They are. And I mean, if our leaders took just that much of what they suggested, I feel like we'd be in a good spot, right?
Hello. Yeah, I'm definitely, I feel so privileged to have been here tonight to experience this. And it definitely makes me proud to be Bermudian.
Absolutely.
That we have these young people doing what it takes despite the current health crisis that we've been going through. They are still engaged. They are still moving forward with making the world a better place.
They sure are. Thank you everyone so much for tuning in and hanging out with us tonight. We hope you learned so much. We hope you enjoyed yourselves.
I did.
Me too. Have a great night, Bermuda.
Thank you for watching the Bermuda International Youth Summit, presented by the Hamilton Rotary Club. Major sponsor, Belco, and supporting sponsors, Lindo's Family Foods, Gorham's, and the Road Safety Council.